pretty big update to the dynamic candle setup. They are now all built on Niagara particles, and the cascade is deprecated. So with that came a lot of new abilities, including the ability to have now a movable candle. So we'll get into that in a second. Just to go back over the settings. So there is a light spawned on each candle. The candles always point up, even if the candle's rotated into another position. We've got, you could switch to, you can put in your own meshes. That's just a temp high res mesh. So there's different optimizations for lots of candles. These are the static candles. So this has a point light with an included material function, so you could put a flicker on your point lights, and if you wanted the candles to cast shadows, here's the same thing for the most optimized version of this, where you could have the most candles where they don't even cast their own shadows, and you have this floating point light above them. So here's a different optimization. So it's actually an improved optimization where it used to fade in and out a point light over random candles. Now it is doing a percentage of the candles will have a light instead of a random light appearing over each candle. The light propagation in each candle now has actually been improved. So the material function's been improved to now have a more consistent fall off. We still have support for random colors and of course white candles. The new setting that I was able to do that I'm pretty excited about, how excited, well, it's candles. I mean, I'm thrilled. So I've been able to get wind working. So there's a wind function that comes in here. It'll blow out some of the candles, pushing this candle smoke in that direction, and then the candles will resettle afterwards. I'll show that again in a stress test. This is the movable camera demo scene. This candle will be held by the player, and so the settings are is lit, is movable, blowout velocity. This particular camera can move at about 1200 is the length of the velocity, and so we would say, but we don't want it to be able to be blown out, because the player we want for this demo, we just want to show that it's always on. These are placed in the level candles, and they'll just fall. They'll fall at about 600 velocity length. So this right here, you'll see at 750 that will stay on. This will blow out. This will blow out, and then we are spawning candles with 600 blowout velocity. So some of those, because that's just about the speed that they fall at, some will blow out and some will stay lit. So let's take a look at this. We can look at the movable camera, or the movable candle, and it will flicker based on the velocity blowout speed. So if you would use this and it doesn't work, it's because your velocity scale is not right, because it has to know basically what's the min and the max velocities so that you would get the flicker. And the candle works in all directions, so it works for up and down. And one of the things that I like about these falling candles is when they won't start smoking until they've stopped rolling. So just like I think a real camera, it has to settle, and that's when you'd actually start seeing the smoke come out of the candle. So even as they fall, they'll flicker before they start getting, the candle will get smaller and flicker as it's falling, and then even yet to the point where it will blow out based on that velocity. And just made a quick demo to show off better the candle movement. And of course it is still a sprite, so it'll have certain issues, but it will be pretty natural for most movements. And finally, this is just a sort of a stress test. The wind basically triggers a timeline on each candle. So what becomes unperformant is when you have too many timelines playing. So while you can have lots of candles, if you turn on wind on too many, you're going to obviously start having performance issues depending on your platform. So this is a wind volume and this is a blowout volume. It is set to the candles. You could actually have the same volume to light the candles. And this is a delay on how quickly you want them to happen or not happen. So it's not just like a clearly delineated line of everything happening. It will delay everything's response by that. So if you see when this comes across, the bottom row will be blown out and the top row will stay in place. But you'll see that the bottom row starts to get blown out by the wind, while the top row will come back and settle after the wind is gone. So those are the wind is a pretty fun feature. I think it adds a lot more life to the candles. I've also added some depth effects so that when you get further away, the candles actually have a bigger sort of flicker so that they just read well from further away. So lots of small improvements across the board, but yeah, pretty much overbuilt candle setup.